Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Ghost Ship. So, this is another Tubi movie. Every once in a while, I just continue to just kind of pop in there and just be like, oh, let's watch this Tubi movie, TUBI movie, and kind of see if it's not completely going to be a waste of time, or maybe it'll be like, oh, hey, yeah, he watched that movie too. Cool. Um, there's something about like the action sequence in this like ship film um, that I think is just so interesting. Plus, I like the fact that they continue to just put out Mudvayne in this in this movie. Because I guess there's a very limited soundtrack upon this film, and so like the one song that they use in one part of the film, they use also towards the end. Just like, yeah, we have no other music but this. But yeah, it's kind of funny to know the little girl because I had just seen American Gods, right? Seen American Gods, and I watched till its completion, and I was like, God, where do I know this girl from? Where do I know this girl from? And then all of a sudden, I rewatched this movie. I'm like, oh, from this film. I'm like, that's where she's familiar from, because it was like I was like going and like, where's this girl from? I don't know. I've probably seen any number of things, but so that's where she's the thing that I know her from. So so it's really interesting to have this kind of be this uh, kind of salvage movie because I guess this band of married people are to go on and continue to just find these boats that they are trying to prevent them from sinking and try to take them onto shore so they can kind of uh, get money out of them. It's basically like a treasure hunt, uh, like a kind of more modern day technological treasure hunt. Uh, and so like I kind of find this movie to be like interesting how they're just kind of digging up these boats. It kind of feels for this movie they're starting to like run out of like things to immediately do once they go on this boat, that all of a sudden they have to go on, and the further and further we go on in this movie there's like so much stuff that they have to add to it to make it a much more exciting film if it's not already exciting off the bat. uh, we go on and we have to just like, hey guys, it's not just the boat that it's the real reason why we want these guys to go and take this boat. There has to be more to it than that. And so we go on and we find these like Jaguar cars, and we find gold at some point, and I'm just like, man, this seems so goofy that we have like so many things that they have to keep adding into this film. But we also have some fun with this whole thing to make this seem like if Poseidon or Titanic were to ever really have a sequel, this might just be it. Um, Plus, I find this movie to just be fun. It feels like the actors in this movie are really having fun doing this project, and so that's what it just comes off to be, is everybody's just like, man, this was just a really fun horror movie that we did at one point, and hopefully somebody will see it. This movie also comes off as like a House on the Haunted Hill kind of film. It kind of has that kind of approach to it, whereas like House on the Haunted Hill is to uh, be a repurposed asylum that people had numerously been murdered, and where this film is to kind of be the same thing, where a group of people all go into a place where a number of people had been murdered, and they go on, they find a number of bodies of people that have been killed. Uh, Maybe some of the bodies more fresher than they were before. So we get some interesting action, we get some interesting things out of this movie, and so at the end of the day, I would say that this movie, like, it's a fun film. I wouldn't go out of my way to say that it's a bad movie. I just can't for the life of me. I can't go on and like boo this film because I've seen it more than once. But I think there's something unique about this story that is to, of course, be a thing that you would always want to come back to at some point and just be like, yeah, like this has like unique flavor to it, and that's the thing I like about it. It's just uh, a good enough movie to garner a re-interest into just kind of like, ooh, I want to remember how these people all die in this film, because it's gonna be another one of those where it's like, how do they all die? Oh, that way. Because there is some actual unique deaths in this film, and so yeah, that's the real enjoyment that I have for this film. Um, so with that said, I think that's all I want to say about this one. I just want to bust out that double five, and let's otherwise go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie. So the very beginning of this film, we of course have an Italian ocean liner called Antonia Garza, Graza, Graza. And so we have this ship, and we of course have a girl named Katie who's going on with some ship officer, and she's playing with this one little wooden toy that is to go on and spell out "I'm so bored" or "I am so bored." Because we of course have this girl who is either just forced to like dance along with these other people on the ship, or just to sit and do nothing. Uh, we of course have Francesca, who is to be going on and doing this Italian song. Here's one thing here. How is it that we have like Katie speaking English to these people? Like, I get it because we technically have the captain who also speaks English at some point in this movie when he becomes a ghost. And this almost kind of feels a little tiny bit like The Shining at some point, also. I guess we can admit that. It feels kind of a flavor of Shining at some point, or The Shining. So but yeah, so we have this Italian girl who's singing this Italian song, and so we go on and we have the people who are to be outside who are all dancing to this song. So all of a sudden we have this wire from this spool that is kind of tightening up for some odd reason. And so all of a sudden this spool is to snap, and all of a sudden this wire is to become like very tightly like flying its way through all of these people, and it chops them up all into little pieces, basically not in little pieces, just like cuts everybody in half. Like there's certain people where their chest is cut in half, their heads are cut in half. It doesn't all quite make 100% sense how certain people are cut certain ways. It I am just like, okay, this wire didn't like go through everybody the exact same fashion. But I think also you had to justify why possibly Katie was alive and no one else was at some points, with how the captain, like, he just lost like half of his head and his head fell off, and but you're seeing some people like chopped in half for the most point. Um, so I thought that that was like, ooh, I'm like, this is interesting. You don't see that happen enough times in a film. So we are off and left to assume that everyone on this boat was to get killed off, and we're to have a big huge action sequence. It's explaining how everyone was to basically get killed off on this boat, and that happens later on in the film, where we go on and have like everybody's mission is just to murder everybody, because we have these officers and these stewards who are, of course, going and taking control of this ship by going and taking these things of champagne and poisoning them and having everybody drink this champagne. And they, of course, are to be poisoned and they die off. And whoever is to not be dancing, we then have all the officers and the stewards going and finding these people and waking them up, and to take uh, these old fashioned like razor blades and slicing their throats to get us to the point where anybody that these guys aren't really working with, which is basically to be the singer who is Francesca, they go on and they basically just kill everybody else they don't trust. Katie all of a sudden is to be our guide here. So Katie is being held and she's kind of being pushed throughout the ship, where we're starting to see a number of people die. Even the guy that Katie was to be playing her wooden toy with, and he ends up getting his throat sliced. So we go on and we have it to where a lot of people just get their throats sliced, to the point that the only people that are really to be left, we seem at some point, is just the officers and Francesca. And so we have one officer that is going on and thinking like, oh, well, me and Francesca are just going to run away together, so I'm going to go and take this one gun and blast all these officers and kill them all, and then they're going to run away together and they'll be happy. And so Francesca goes on and kills this officer, for us to have Francesca now go on and meet this one man who is to like be her lover. And we find out that he is going on and is taking this one hook and having it go and smack right into this girl's jugular, right into her neck, and kill her off. And so he, of course, is the only one left. And so I will get to that, who that person is, once we get towards the later part of the film. So we go on now, and in whatever is present time for this movie. So we, of course, have a crew that is to be manning this ship called the Arctic Warrior, and they're trying, desperately going on and trying to tow this salvaged ship. I don't know exactly what it is, but like I couldn't find any real specific terms of what the ship was, so I just called it I'm just going to call it a salvaged ship. So we go on, we have it where, of course, Greer is mentioning that the salvage ship that they're towing is going to drag them down. And so Murphy is going on the walkie and, of course, telling Epps to run to that other ship to find out where the leak is, so they won't be taking the ship along with... they won't be untying the ship from their ship. So, like, hey, save this boat, because we're going to just cut the ties and we're going to just like get out of here. Greer is also mentioning that certain engines are just, they're blowing. They're like, we're going to have to figure out how to just fix this ship later on. So Abs is going on and is to go and find where the leak is, and she is to rope her way down there and is to kind of go and slab a piece of metal and to be uh, using some kind of nail gun or staple gun to just kind of put that on there. And both Dodge and Munder, who's Carl Urban here, are going on and welding that piece so the leak is like sealed. And so we go on and we have this crew who I guess goes on and gets the water out of the boat and goes on to shore to then get the money from this boat. Like, yeah, we did it. Like, yeah, we got this money. So we then go on and we, of course, have a guy. Ooh, um, where is it here? Uh, Called Jack Ferryman, who we find out is to actually be a weather service pilot who was to go on and find this ship, this Italian ocean liner. And so he, of course, is to go on and make it to Murphy, and he's saying, like, well, hey, can I talk to you in private? And Murphy's like, well, hey, anything that you can say to me, you can say to my crew. So Jack goes on and has like a number of pictures, weirdly, of this ship, but it's a ship that's like at a distance. But he has like a number of copies for this boat. Why does he have a number of pictures? Like, was he like showing this to everybody? Was he gonna like have people just keep these photos? I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but so we go on here and so Jack is to pull off to the side, and so the crew is just kind of like, well, like, how much do you really think that we're gonna get out of this? And Murphy doesn't have like a clear like amount of money. Murphy goes on and he's just like, well, it could be thousands or it could be millions. I don't know. Like, dude, you couldn't come up with like. And Murphy's also just like would get nothing, and it's like, I'm sorry. Well, then why would we want to take that risk? And it doesn't seem like they have a boat that is going to be able to pull this thing out of there, anyways. But I guess we really just have it to where these guys are to always just take this risk and realize that they've probably bitten off more than they can chew every single time they go into every single one of these missions. And plus there's no way for them to know how much money they're really going to get out of here, so you can't just. Plus, I think that really anybody who's actually a salvage expert and whatever, and is to know how exactly much money that these people will get. It's a movie thing where it's like, hey man, I just wanted to do this kind of money, but I didn't want to go and like research this thing, and I didn't want to go on and um, have the exact numbers and whatever, because anybody who is an actual, real, legitimate expert will say, ah, rah, 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 like this isn't accurate, this isn't right. Um, I'm kind of wondering if there would be a like salvage expert that goes on and does this all the time. That is to probably pick through this movie and realize how inaccurate it is. Because they'll probably go on and find out that it's like, yeah, this movie's really inaccurate. Um, because we have it to where it's uh, really just like, hey, let's do a boat movie. They just really want to do a horror film out on sea. That's all they really cared about. So we have all the guys in the crew who are thinking that they might want to pass on this. There's certain people that are having certain events going on in their life, and they're just like, I don't know, Murphy. I don't know if we should do this. But once Murphy's in, it seems like everybody is to have like, we'll go on, we'll do it, we'll sure. So Murphy goes and calls back Jack. It's like, okay, let's do this mission, let's do this thing. So we have the Arctic Warrior going on and trying to find this boat via radar, and so we just have Santos that is at the wheel, while everybody else is kind of just kind of going and chatting because it seems like they have some time to kill. So we go on and we have kind of Jack getting to know the crew, uh, going on and having Ep saying like, "Well, hey, like I'm sure what you're asking is like, hey, why am I on this? Like, why am I on this boat, this crew, when I could be going home and making a family right now?" Well, like Epps is to go on and mention that she owns like a third of this whole operation, and that she gets a pretty good percentage when they do any tasks. And like honestly, for Epps, it seems like a lot of times she's always to be needed, even though Murphy is to consistently go on and say like, "Hey Epps, you're really busting my balls, like come on, like God, I hate you because you're always trying to outsmart me or whatever." So we go on in this movie, and uh, we of course have it where Santos is to mention to Murphy that he's seeing something on the radar, something that's big. And so Murphy goes and checks it on the radar, and he sees nothing. And Santos is like, "Look, it's right there." And so he's like, "Oh, yeah, I see it now." So all of a sudden, what's kind of clearly on the radar, Santos all of a sudden is to almost hit this this big massive boat with their ship. Um, because he doesn't, I guess, realize what the distance is, and plus it's nighttime, so I guess he is to almost smack into this boat. And so we actually had Dodge, who was outside of the boat, and almost is to get crushed in between this boat, but luckily he is to just kind of jump back in the boat at the perfect time. So we go on and we end up finding this Italian cruise, this Italian ocean liner, and we of course go on and have Murphy, who is to know the entire story about this ocean liner, and how, like bizarrely, uh, this ship weirdly was to be a thing that people were searching for but couldn't find, and it was so weird how like there was nobody really manning this ship. Uh, we also go on and have Murphy, who's talking to Jack and telling this story about this ship called the Mary uh, Celeste, Mary Celeste, the ship who had at some point been a Civil War ship that had gone on and gone through a number of of waters and a number of things, and without anyone manning it, and because I guess for some reason or another, like the whole ship just died, um, and so like that's another one of those like ghost ship like stories where the ship just was in the water and it's just been there for uh, through many of different waters and many through places and whatever. But anyways, so we go on and we make it onto this ship, and so we all of a sudden have them like packing C4 explosives. I'm like, why? What do you need C4 explosives for? But it comes into the later on part of the ship where they're just gonna go on and be like, yeah, we're just gonna just freaking kill this ship. Uh, but anyways, so we go on and we have these characters who are of course kind of joking around, and it seems like these guys are to joke around a little bit too much on this boat, but I guess it is what it is with these characters. So we have at one point where Murphy's opening this one door and he's like, "Oh, after you," and it's like, "Oh no, after you," because Murphy is mentioning that at some point any part of this boat, like the things that they're walking on, may not be all that. Uh, what is the right word? Hardened. There might be some horrific rust on this stuff that might make them sink like quicksand. So just kind of be leery about how you're walking. So we go on, and of course we have Munder, who of course is Carl Urban, who walks first here, and he ends up falling through one of the floors, and we have Epps who's trying to like grab onto him, and so he's like, "Oh my god, I almost crapped my pants." And so Dodge is like, "No, I think that's just how you smell all the time." So we of course have Murphy who's like, "Well, I'll take the lead now, now that you fell because you're a moron." And so we go on and have them go through the ship and start to like see a number of things here. We have them see the little wooden toy that instead of saying "I am bored now," it says "Welcome aboard." The little Easter egg of this movie. We have Munder who is to go and see a clock that is still working, and so he looks at it. He's like, let me kind of touch this." So all of a sudden it makes this big gonging sound that scares the crap out of him. We have Greer that goes on and is to spot this elevator shaft, which that's kind of a foreshadowing moment because I guess Greer won't be all that observant later on in the film. So we also have it to where like a number of people start spotting things, start going into certain parts of the ship, and so that's where things are gonna probably start to get murky for what all the stuff that I'm probably going to forget to cover at some point. So they've gone on and they've gone through the ship and they've kind of looked through all of it, and we have at some point where Murphy is going into the captain's office. So we go on and we have Epps that goes on to the pool area, and she's to realize that it seems there was a number of people that were all shot, of course, via the pool area, as if somebody was to either shove all these people in the pool and they shot them, or maybe it was like an after thing where people were all like sprayed with bullets while they were by this pool. So Epps is to go on and go right into this pool for whatever goofy reason to kind of check to see that there are bullet cases in this pool. So when Epps is to get out of this pool, all of a sudden she is to spot Katie for the first time and falls over and smacks um, back right into the pool because she was, of course, afraid. So we have at some point where Epps is going and telling Jack that she, of course, was to see this girl, and that Epps is thinking that she's losing her mind, and so Jax is just like, well, like, and so Jax keeps getting like updates at some point that Epps is saying like, oh, she talked to me now. Oh, she's like telling me where to go. Oh, she's telling me this now. Oh, I'm figuring this out. So we go on and all of a sudden have it where uh, Greer is by this piano, and there's this kind of old poster of this Francesca girl, and he's like, "Ooh, nice chest," basically. Uh, Censorship, heaven forbid you say anything on YouTube. So, but we have Greer that is to have a picture of his fiance, and he's like, "Well, hey, it's not as good as, of course, the future Mrs. Greer, um, because of course we have Greer who's going to get married soon, and that's his main concern, getting to the part of the movie where Epps was to cut Greer's hair, which is really just to shave his head at that point for this film. So we have Greer who's kind of playing with his piano, and so we have Greer who's starting to hear this Italian music playing, and so we all of a sudden have other guys like Dodge and Munder who are thinking that maybe Epps is kind of playing with them. We have at some point where Greer is seeing this cigarette and asking, "Hey, when did Epps go and start wearing lipstick?" So more and more we start to see that these characters are starting to see ghosts one way or the other here. And we also find out that they're starting to realize that this boat is sinking and they have to figure out a way of what they want the most out of this ship, to either just uh, realize that this boat is something that they aren't going to be able to salvage, because this boat is going to go on and find a very rocky place that is going to completely make it pointless to try to salvage. We have the one joke where Jack was to say, like, "Well, was this boat hit by an iceberg or something?" And they're like, "No, like it just went through uh, rocky parts, and it just uh, like is a very old boat." So at first we have them wanting to try and salvage this boat uh, by putting new metal pieces over the place where it's sinking, and so that was their master plan. Because if they weren't going to do that, it would just be really hard to pull this boat. Because the metaphor is that this boat would have four flat tires, and like as if it's a car, and so it would be very tough for them to drag this boat um, back to shore. So they go on and they're going through this boat more, and so both Jack and Epps are going through, and so we start to find out that people are realizing that there might have been other guys that have been here before. We have Dodge, who realizes that there's a digital watch here, and that doesn't make sense for a digital watch to be here. And so Epps is to go on and find that there's a number of dead bodies that are kind of fresh dead bodies in this one part of the boat. And so Epps is to also notice that the door that they came in through, the one place that they're at, is now locked. So Epps and Jack have to take another way around, and so Epps is now telling everybody that there's dead bodies, fresh dead bodies, in this one part of the boat. Maybe they should just get the heck out of here. That certain people are starting to get very uncomfortable on this boat, and so while Epps is to also make her way back to all of these guys, she goes on and she is to find that there are a plethora of cases that are to be filled with gold. I'm like, what is this? Like City Slickers 2? where like Curly is just on this hunt, or Curly's brother is on this hunt to find this block of gold, which we find out that the block of gold is fake, and then we go and turn around and have Curly, who is to find a real thing of gold. And so he gives like Billy Crystal the thing of gold for him to like scratch through, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's real! Let's go and do City Slickers 3." No, okay, that's fine. So we so we have it where when Epps is to go and find both Dodge and Munder, who are now playing with Epps and trying to scare her because uh, Dodge and Munder thought that Epps was like messing with them before with the whole Italian music thing. So we go on and have Epps telling these guys that there's dead bodies, there's a Jaguar car, and there's gold because Jack is to find this Jaguar car and say like, "Oh my God, this is the car of my dreams," and I can't believe they have it here. And Epps is trying to make Jack focus and try to get on to meet with the rest of the group. So they go on and they start counting this gold, and they realize that there's probably like millions of dollars worth of gold here, maybe 100 million, maybe 300 million. uh, there isn't a thing to be sure. So the guys are all just thinking, it's like, well, hey, we're gonna make a crap ton of money just off of this gold. What do we need this boat for? So we go on and have the guys just all like they're taking all the gold now. And so both Greer and Santos are going and trying to fix up the Arctic Warrior so like their engine works fine. So Santos is in the engine room, bizarrely talking to this picture of this car, and so he's gotten the engine running fine. Like, basically, all he's really doing is cleaning the engine, because that seems to be all he's able to really do here, because maybe he's not an engine guy. So, whoever this actor is. So, we have Santos telling Greer the ship's ready to go. All of a sudden, the Arctic Warrior is to have one of its propane tanks being turned on by a ghost. And so all of a sudden, the engine room is to now be on fire, and this ship blows up. And now the Arctic Warrior is sinking. Epps is jumping into the water, uh, trying to rescue anybody that, of course, to still be on this ship. And so everybody is now forced to go back onto the ghost ship or the Italian ocean liner, and now they are forced to uh, go on here and are to forcibly repair the ship, get all the leaks and everything out of it, and really their goal is to take this ship and hope that they can get to shore or just get to a point where another boat can find them by just kind of steering this old ship uh, to a point where they can go and kind of get past these dangerous waters. So now that these guys are all stuck on the ship, because we have Murphy, who is stubbornly not wanting to call anything in, call for Mayday, call for nothing. Because we have Murphy who's saying, well, international waters law is to say that anything that we are to take here is to be our findings, and so we really just have this be the old fashioned thing as finders keepers, losers weepers, I guess. Um, Funny enough, we had in the early stages of this where Murphy is to say that maybe instead of just having them tug back this ship, maybe they should go and find other tugboats and maybe share the wealth of this ship. But then they realize that this ship may sink soon, and so they have to kind of fix the of course sinking ship. So now they are forced to have to fix this boat. It's the only boat that they have now, so they're just going to try and fix it. So they find the leak, and they of course seal it up. And so now they're using this of course machine to kind of pump out the water. And so now we're going to start to see people getting killed off here. So we have Murphy, who's consistently in the captain's cabin, to the point of now the captain is talking to Murphy, and at some point he's bringing up this ship called the Lorelei, and so the Lorelei, I guess, was a ship that originally had these blocks of gold, and this ship was to go and collect the gold from off of that ship and was to take it on their voyage. And so I guess that ship was probably another abandoned ghost like ship, also. Just really bringing up the history, I guess, of abandoned ships at some point. So while while Epps is going on and again talking to Katie at some point in this movie, and Katie is to see that Epps is opening up this locket that Katie had, because Epps is to find Katie's body, because I guess someone had forced a noose around Katie's neck and hung her. We have Epps who opens up this locket, and Katie's like, "Oh, I haven't seen it open in so long." And we have Katie mentioning that she probably should not talk to Epps because someone would not like it. And Epps is like, "Well, who wouldn't like it?" And so that's when we get the whole flashback where both Katie and Epps are going on, and Katie is showing Epps what all happened to this boat, leading us to go and find out that Jack was to be the guy who is to kill every single person off, and that Jack is to be this Jack, the same guy. Even though it's different time periods, this guy, I guess, had just lived forever, or this guy was a demon ghost, whatever you want to say here. So now we're having certain people start to get killed off here. So when Epps is to go on and find Murphy, Murphy is to not really know who is who, because Murphy all of a sudden is to get spooked because the captain is going and talking about Santos, who had died in the Arctic Warriors engine room. And so Murphy is to go on and find the rest of his crew to find Santos instead, haunting him, telling him that he's going to be stuck on the ship now because of Murphy. So all of a sudden, when Murphy's supposed to be seeing Epps here, he instead sees Murphy with this knife instead of a flashlight. So Murphy is now fighting with who he believes is Santos, but is actually Epps, to the point of them having to knock out Murphy and put him into this aquarium tank and just leave him there. And they find out later that he somehow had this aquarium starting to fill up with water, and he drowned. He died. So now covering Greer. Greer is to consistently go on and be over by this piano, now later on drinking this champagne, and Greer is regretting the fact that he didn't call like Mayday and just kind of went against Murphy's orders. And like he's regretting that decision because he feels like they might just be left on this boat to rot. So Greer is all of a sudden to have Francesca, who is to appear out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden it seems that Greer is to be right back onto this Italian cruise ship's dance floor, like as if it is to, of course, have been 1962 all over again. So we go on and we have Greer, who is to start dancing with Francesca here and says, like, you know what? Like, I know this isn't real. I know I shouldn't be believing all this, but I'm just going to go with it anyways. And so the more and more Greer is to be going in this situation, the more he's seduced by it. And Greer is like, well, I really can't. I really can't be like cheating on my fiance with a ghost, right? Like that doesn't count, right? It's just ghost love. So you have Greer going on and kissing this ghost, and so all of a sudden Greer is to follow Francesca, and Francesca is to are starting to slowly but surely unzip her dress, starting to take it off, and Greer is just following her. So Greer is to all of a sudden try to grab on to Francesca to lose his balance and all of a sudden fall down this elevator shaft and is to die on the very bottom of it, kind of pierced through all these elevator pieces and get killed off here because he's to fall a pretty good chunk of a way down this elevator shaft. So Greer is now dead, sadly. So now it seems that numbers are starting to dwindle down, and so Munder. How does Munder die? Because of course this guy dies, because pretty much everybody does in this movie. So we have it to where both Munder and Dodge are to kind of do paper rock scissors, and Munder seems to always get the short end of everything. So Munder is to go on and check because evidently one of the pipe or one of the hoses that they're trying to get this water out is like having issues. So Munder goes on and he's checking on it, and he's going to have to use this scuba gear to do so. And so all of a sudden we have at one point where Munder is to kind of follow this hose, and then he is to get hosed himself because all of a sudden his feet is to get caught in one of these gears, and he is to get crushed between these gears and killed. So basically at this point it's like, how does everybody die in this movie? Because really after everything else, like that's really all that really matters at that point. Because once you start to get through certain parts of the story, it's like, okay, well then, how does all these people die? Um, so we now have it to where it's just Epps, Dodge, and Jack at this point. So we now have Epps making her way to Dodge, and so Epps is say that Jack can't be trusted, and so Dodge, you just go and kind of uh, man the steering wheel, so to speak, so we can just kind of figure out a way out of here. And like that's all that he's to be concerned about. Jack is to appear uh, by Dodge and Epps and just like, oh hey, uh like maybe I'll go off and I'll do certain things, and Dodge is telling Jack, it's like, no, just stay here. Because Dodge is to realize that Epps is to say that Jack can't be trusted, so Dodge is gonna go on and try to be like I wanna see where this guy is so he doesn't sneak up behind me and murder me somehow. So we really finally have Jack being a more confident version of himself, and it's just to say that Dodge is disgusting. And Dodge is like, a squeeze name? Excuse me? What? So Jack is to mention that Dodge is like a little puppy to Epps, and how Dodge kind of wants to do anything to kind of win Epps over, but it's never going to happen. And like, I'm paraphrasing here, but so we have it where it seems that Jack is almost gonna go and attack Dodge, so Dodge is to have the shotgun and he blasts him. So Dodge is to go on and to talk to Epps and say like, "Hey, I had shot Jack. So what is the next plan?" Epps's plan is to blow up the ship. The only ship that they're on, they're gonna blow it up. And Dodge is like, "Well, why? Like, we gotta get out of here, right? We gotta go on and survive." And Epps is just like, "Well, we're not gonna survive on this ship." And but Dodge is like, "But what about the gold?" And Epps is like, "Nobody gets the gold off the ship." Like, that's the whole thing. Like, nobody's going to be alive long enough to get any reward out of this ship whatsoever. So it's pointless. Let's just blow this thing up. And so Dodge is continuing to argue here. And so Epps is just like, well, you know what? The one thing that I'm concerned about, Dodge? Why didn't you ask me where is Munder? And so Dodge is just like, oh, crap. So all of a sudden, we find out that Dodge is now Jack because Dodge is now dead. Because I'm sure Jack sneaked up behind Dodge and just killed him. So, but they kind of talk about it off camera. They basically kill Dodge off camera. Really, I'm like, nah, that kind of sucked. Like, they couldn't have said how he died after the fact, like showed a picture of it or showed a camera thing of it. But it is what it is here. So really, Jack here is to tell Epps that all she needed to do was to just make this ship like to where it wouldn't sink, to where it would just continue to be operable, and so that we Jack can consistently keep sending people here to get them all killed off, because Jack just needs a certain number of souls so that way he can keep the people downstairs happy, basically people in hell happy, that he's collecting all of these souls. So what goes on here, and we just realize that Epps is to have this kind of trigger thing that is to cause the C4 explosion, and so Jack and Epps are to go on and fight here, and Epps is to lose this trigger for this bomb. So we have Epps and we have Jack fighting here, and so what happens is that Epps is to find this spear gun, and so instead of her going and shooting Jack, which would be a waste of time anyways, Epps goes on and is to shoot the bomb remote thing and explodes the C4, and now Epps is just kind of swimming through the boat trying to save herself here, having Jack realize that it's like, oh my god, like now this boat is sinking, oh my god, this is a waste, yada yada yada. So Epps is trying to swim through this boat and having Katie guide her where to go. And so while Epps is going and swimming, trying to make her way out of this boat, all of a sudden we find out that all the souls are to now be able to escape from this boat and make it to their final resting place. Uh, because these were all of uh, the characters that were marked by Jack, and they couldn't go on to make it to heaven or make it to wherever because they were marked by Jack and they were forced to just be where they are. Um, so now that we have it where Epps freed them, now the souls were all free to go to heaven. And so Jack now has to start all over again, as Epps is now just kind of floating on this one uh, kind of piece from the ship, going and finding another ocean liner to pick her up. And so Epps is to be put on this ambulance and to be carted away. All of a sudden, we find a number of these gold cases, these gold brick cases, being put into another ocean liner. And we find Jack who's like, hey. And Epps is like, no. And we have the Mudvayne kind of singing us out here. And I was like, oh, so like they were probably gearing it up for this to be a sequel. Why? Like I guess is a real fun kind of thing of like, yeah, like of course this is gonna gear up for for a sequel, because it makes sense that like this thing is never going to end. That this guy is just gonna go on and get more. Like he has to go and find that specific number of souls, so he's gonna go through every single boat to get it. So it's gonna become like a mood point. To have a number of these boats just having everybody get killed off. Maybe every single one of these past abandoned storied ships, or possibly every single time where this Jack character failed. Wouldn't that be an interesting story? To just kind of have come full circle to every single time. They could have possibly done a prequel of this movie, or they could have done uh, any number of things connecting to this film, but didn't, because they just did this one-off thing. So, with that said, I think I'm going to one-off my way out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.